welcome to a brand new episode of Comment Section. That's right, guys. We are continuing our celebration of the end of 2025. That's right. You know, there were so many good TV shows that we weren't able to fill in the rest of the stuff we had planned originally, so we had to throw it together into this episode. That's right. So, bonus end of the year trilogy. That's right. Who would have thunk
Nice.
it? Not producer Paul, who is like, "What? Another episode?"
Yeah, I only budgeted for one. He
That's
he
right.
really was trying to only get the one.
Yes. Not only is he upset about the budget, but he's like, "I have to listen to another one,"
Yeah.
and he'll throw his chair over and just
Yeah,
like, "I
he
can't do
resents
this."
us. He resents us. He does.
Yeah. Boy, if there's anyone who gets the holiday blues, it's producer Paul.
Yep.
Yes. So in this episode, we're planning to talk about comic books, video games, and music.
Yes, that is right.
That's right. So we'll be kicking things off with looking at the best of the comic books that came out this year um, from Marvel and DC. That's right. So I believe you said earlier, maybe in the last episode, that you didn't really have anything for this segment.
Yeah, comic books are not something that I keep up on enough to have 2025 relevant ones.
Uh, that's cool because I don't have anything for the other two segments
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it all evens out.
it does.
Yes. So let's first talk about what was going on in the regular DC universe. That's right, some exciting stuff. One thing that I would love to give a special shout out to was the Summer of Superman special. That's right. It came out this summer. Obviously, they were going to do a bunch of stuff to promote the new James Gunn Superman movie. And this was a comic book longer than usual, written by Mark Waid, who is out of the guys currently at Marvel or DC is my favorite out of all of them. Anytime Mark Waid does something, I always look forward to it. Dan Slott, who did the Amazing Spider-Man for several years, and I think Joshua Williamson. I'm sorry, dude. I'm blanking on your name. I'll look it up in a second. But yeah, so these three guys came together to do a special comic book, and I thought that it was really great. When reading it, I think the best way to describe it is that it reminded me the most of Superman Lois. Like it felt like a comic book version
Hmm.
of Superman Lois, where ironically, it has kind of a similar plot to the series finale of Superman Lois, where it was the wedding of Lana Lang and John Henry Irons, aka Steel. They're getting married. Everyone's back in Smallville, and then something happens, and you see the group go out and fight. At this time, they were doing a storyline where Lois had powers, so she was going by Superwoman. That's done now. Luckily, because it was a bit of an odd choice, but overall, this was a really fun story, and it felt like a really nice celebration of the character. There also was a Superboy story, which was set, back when Clark Kent was a teenager. So while most of the book felt like Superman and Lois, there was one spot that felt a bit like Smallville.
Hmm.
So yeah, you know what? It just, you know, it was really nice to be like, you know, just being like, oh man, it sucks that Superman and Lois is done, but being like, oh yeah, it's not like the character's completely gone. We still have him around. And just like when I read new Superman comics now, that's what they most remind me of is Superman Lois. So that was really cool. I am sorry. I'm trying to find out that guy's name because he deserves a shout. Joshua Williamson. I
Yeah.
think that's who I said it was. And there we go.
Mhm.
So by the way, he did a great job on The Flash too. He had a run
Well,
on the Flash in the New 52, so he's great there too. So, you know, the next comic I want to talk about from the DC universe was the kind of the first big crossover event set in kind of this what they're calling their all in era, which started last year. That's what led to the launch of the Absolute Universe, and a bunch of their books being renumbered of like, hey, here's a good jumping on point. And the storyline is called We Are Yesterday. And it's a story, once again, written by Mark Waid that was featured in Justice League Unlimited and also Batman and Superman. So the thing about that was that Justice League Unlimited is set in the present and Batman and Superman is set in the past. So you had a story where it was all about Gorilla Grodd, a Flash villain, kind of bringing together the Legion of Doom to attack the Justice League. And I thought it was really fun. It culminated in this really cool finale where you had both the Justice League from our current time, but you had like also members from like different eras. Like you had the blue Superman from the 90s show up. You had Batman from Scott Snyder's New 52 run show up. You had Batman Beyond show up. So that was really cool. And it ended with, oh crap, these characters from the past, they're kind of stuck here right now. So it ended with like, hey, we gotta find a way to get them home. And I did see recently that they did appear on some covers. So it did set up a really cool story that celebrated the history of the DC universe. So yeah,
good
that
stuff.
was really cool. Now let's pop over to the Marvel universe real quick. So one that really stood out to me was I said before the return of J. Michael Straczynski to Marvel. I say return, but he just did Captain America, but it
Hmm.
feels like he just came back. So he did this series of characters teaming up. They normally would assume team up. Like one he did was a Captain America book with Volstagg, who's like one of Thor's friends. You see him like in the Thor movies, he's on Asgard. And
Yeah.
that was a really cool one. But the one that stood out to me was Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six. And it's such a simple premise. It's Peter and Mary Jane go out for dinner. By the way, I gotta say this. I love how like, a lot of fans are so upset that it feels like the current editors at Marvel won't let Peter and Mary Jane be together again. I love with JMS, they're just like, you know what, JMS, do whatever you want. You know what? Do just make us some gold. And so they're together and it's all about at this restaurant, a bunch of the villains are coming in. Not like to attack, they just want to have dinner. And Peter Parker's confronting them, like, hey, what are you doing here? And there was kind of this great it was kind of a simple story, and then it kind of leads to this big fight. But you had Peter in a restaurant, you had a bunch of Avengers at that restaurant, a bunch of the supervillains, and kind of the thesis that JMS was talking about at the end was you had Peter and Mary Jane at the end talking about what happened and how about and Mary Jane talks about, you know what? Before everything went down, everyone there kind of found peace together, kind of have in this shared having a meal experience.
Hmm.
So that was again, it was a simple story, but again, that's the thing about JMS. He can really tell any type of story and make it compelling.
Yeah.
So that was great. Now let's turn to the absolute DC's absolute universe. So, not gonna lie, I haven't really been able to keep up with the absolute universe that much because, like I said, there's so much stuff, and it's not like a streaming service where you just get it all. You have to go out every Wednesday to the comic book store, throw down some cash, and be like, let me take another pile of comics that I need to figure out where I have room to put these.
Yeah.
So, But boy, what a wonderful problem to have in this day and age. So, but I gotta give a shout out to Absolute Batman, which is my favorite of the Absolute line. I believe I don't remember when the first story arc wrapped up, but I do remember that this year they did the two-part Mr. Freeze story, which Mr. Freeze is one of my favorite villains. Honestly, I think he's my third favorite behind Joker and Two-Face.
Well,
And I thought they did a really good job with that. I have not read any of the Absolute Bane storyline. That was kind of their main thing for 2025 was Absolute Bane. And I have not read any of it, but I'm assuming you haven't. But have you seen the meme that has been going around? I'm assuming you haven't, but it's been going
I
on
don't think
like
so.
on every week on Twitter. I've been seeing for like the past few months.
Oh, really? Oh,
It,
yeah.
it's
I don't know if I've seen it.
it's Alfred at in from the Dark Knight Rises. You know, at the grave scene where he's crying,
Yeah.
and it's him crying, and it says, and at the bottom it says, "Absolute Bane is the scariest guy I've ever seen."
That's
Oh wait, let me see. All right, oh, let me see if I can share it real quick on here. Can I
yeah.
share on here or no?
Good question. Actually, it doesn't seem obvious. That seems like a fatal flaw, if not, that I didn't think of.
Anyway, I sent a link to you to it real quick so you can at least see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen. I think I've seen that in other format, like that image of him crying at the end. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bane is the
so
scariest guy I've ever seen in my life.
and now they're doing it
Yeah.
for Absolute Joker too. Absolute Joker's the scariest guy I've ever seen in my life. So yeah. So in addition to Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman, by the way, I gotta say, Absolute Superman has kind of lost me. Like it's kind of
Ah.
like, and you know what? I see I'm not the only one because when
Yeah.
people talk about the Absolute Universe, they're like, "Yeah, Batman, Wonder Woman," and then there's Superman. I just I don't know. I hope that maybe there can be a creative change with that book. But this year we had a bunch of new books launch, and from Green Lantern to Martian Manhunter, but the one I was the most hyped for was The Flash. And it was going to follow the absolute version of Wally West. And I've read the first 3 issues, and boy, was it awesome. I will say Absolute Flash is my second favorite book of the Absolute Universe. Like my top 3 are Batman's number 1, Flash is number 2, and then Wonder Woman will be number 3.
Mm.
So, yeah, in a way, having Batman and Flash be my favorites feels a little reminiscent of the
Yeah.
Arrowverse, except, you know, back then instead of Batman, you had Green Arrow. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that, yeah, Absolute Flash, I've been very happy with. So let's now turn to Marvel's Ultimate Universe. That's right. Universe coming to an end in 2026. And we have a, you know, maybe in our upcoming one, we'll talk about why fans are a bit unhappy because it doesn't sound like that was the original plan
Mm.
and that there's some unhappiness with Marvel's editorial decision, but we can talk about that
Mm.
later. So, Ultimate Spider-Man is it's the crown jewel of the franchise. I've really been enjoying Ultimate Spider-Man, and Ultimate Spider-Man this year did an awesome story that had Craven the Hunter and showed Spidey and Goblin trying to survive being hunted by Craven, and that was a really great storyline. Again, Craven the Hunter is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I would love to have a proper movie version of him, one that actually fights Spider-Man and isn't
Mhm.
just in his own movie.
Yeah.
We also saw Richard Parker become his own superhero, Peter's son. Now he's got a black Spider Man suit and is fighting crime alongside his dad. Very reminiscent of Jordan Kent in Superman Lois. And also, Pete, we had a storyline where the Parker family all had to go on the run and leave New York and go into hiding.
Wow.
And I always think that's always a really interesting story to see what characters do in that situation.
Yeah.
And we also learned Gwen Stacy is one of a group of Mysterios. That's right. And one of them also includes Robbie Robertson from the Daily Bugle. So yeah, again, yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man is the crown jewel of this series. I'm very much happy with it. And again, just like with Absolute Flash, this year was going to be a big one because they were going to launch the book I had been waiting for since they started this universe, and that was Ultimate Wolverine. And I have to say, the first story arc was kind of like, I think that the first 6 issues at max should have been the first 2
Mhm.
because it did feel a bit dragged out. Because the first story, he's like the Wolverine is basically like the Winter Soldier, and he has no dialogue.
Oh, okay.
So, and by the way, a comic book, really, the writer and artist, it doesn't matter what page number, it's the writer and artist really set the pace of how fast it takes to get through a comic book. Like Ultimate Spider-Man and the Ultimates, very satisfying. Like it felt like every other issue of Wolverine, Ultimate Wolverine, you get done in like 8 minutes and was like, and be like, that's it? Really? I wasted $5 on this?
Yeah.
But then once we got past that first arc, which was not the best, then Wolverine got his memory back and was able to speak. And it was like, okay, now it's the Ultimate Wolverine book I wanted. And I've really been enjoying it. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough launch, and I know that it lost a lot of fans, and I can see why because I almost dropped it. Like I can,
Mhm.
it's I'll be honest, I only bought it just because it was. I wouldn't have bought it by itself. I only bought it when I picked up Ultimate Spider-Man: The Ultimates. But I'm glad that by issue 6, it finally took a turn and became the book I think it should have been. So
Amazing.
that was good. And let's talk about the Ultimate Universe's fun kind of event book, which is Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion. Now, this, unlike our regular Ultimate Spider-Man book, this one didn't follow Peter Parker.
Oh, really?
This one followed our Marvel Universe, formerly from the other Ultimate Universe version, Miles Morales. That's right. So Miles Morales was transported to the Ultimate Universe along with his baby sister. Can you believe that? Miles now has a sibling. And boy, went into some hijinks because he had to find his baby sister in this alternate universe. And the first issue, obviously, you had to have Miles meet this version of Peter Parker. By the way, it's crazy to me to think that this one version of Miles Morales, okay, this one version has now met the 3 definitive comic book versions of Peter Parker.
Oh, really?
He's met the Marvel Universe one, he met the 2000s Ultimate one, and now he's met our current Ultimate Spider-Man.
Wow,
That's
brag.
that's yes. So obviously, the original Spider-Man storyline is like probably my favorite Marvel comic of all time, which is the first time Miles met the Marvel Universe Peter. So anytime you have Miles and Peter team up, it's an exciting thing. Honestly, outside Wolverine, Miles is my favorite person to see Peter interact with, at least superhero wise.
Yeah.
And it was so great seeing our new Ultimate Peter Parker meet Miles Morales, especially because this Peter Parker just started being a superhero, and Miles now has a bit of experience. So that was really kind of cool to see how different it is because he's met Peter Parkers who've been Spider Man for a while. This is the first time he has been Spider Man longer. And they had Again, great chemistry. Honestly, Ultimate Incursion might number one might be my favorite Ultimate book of this year. It was really fun to see also Miles accidentally name give Richard Parker a superhero code name because his suit looks a little bit like Venom's. And Miles is like, "Do you call yourself Venom?" It's just like, "Oh no, Venom, that's a good name." And Miles is like, "No, maybe you don't use that name. Too late. I am Venom now." So I guess Richard's gonna be calling himself Venom. And we also had Miles in the next issue team up with Giant Man and Wasp to try to find his sister, and they travel to Wakanda. And yeah, it was a very fun story, kind of crossing over like, hey, here's this character from the old Ultimate Universe taking a little trip to the new Ultimate Universe. And I thought that issue one, for a universe that can be a bit darker compared to the regular Marvel universe, I thought that Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion number one was probably the Ultimate Universe's funniest issue. So yeah, there's that. So as we come to the end of our comic book segment, some of us may be wondering what was the best of 2020, like the absolute best. What takes the spot, the champion?
I've certainly been wondering.
Yes, and might be a cop out. I kind of gotta give it to three different books. I
Okay.
kind of have to give it to because I just can't choose.
Well, okay.
It's a struggle. One, it sounds like a hot take because I guess a lot of people haven't been liking it. But one is Batman Hush 2 by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee.
Oh, interesting.
This is a sequel to the classic storyline from Batman comics in the mid 2000s, and I just thought that it's been such a fun throwback having these two guys that have been such a big influence on Batman coming back and doing another story. It was this really interesting story of it opens with Batman's put in this unique position where Joker is like really wounded and Batman has to go to Leslie Tompkins to like save his life, and people are like, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" And Batman's like, "No, we gotta save him and do whatever it takes." So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The other one is Detective Comics, and that's one that I know has been nominated for like some Eisner Awards recently. And I gotta say, kind of like how when I read Superman comics right now, they feel like Superman Lois. The Detective Comics feels a lot like the Arkham games. Like it's really getting down to it, it has that tone of this darker
Mhm.
Batman, his interesting stories. I think the difference between Batman and Detective is that Detective really gets into the nitty gritty of crime in Gotham. So that's been
Yeah.
really interesting. I really liked the storyline they did recently with Batman and Penguin. That was really good. And I also got to throw this up. It was it became my most hyped book of the year. That was Amazing Spider-Man Torn, which brought back J. Michael Straczynski to Spider-Man. That is that's the Marvel book of the year. I read the first issue, absolutely loved it. JMS once again cranking out pure gold. Writes Spider-Man better than anyone. I just love whenever JMS sits down and writes Spider-Man because you get the heart, you get the humor, the drama, the action. It's the perfect package of what makes this character so great. So Amazing
Yeah.
Spider-Man Torn, along with Batman Hush 2 and Detective Comics, takes the number one spot.
That's all. That's awesome. And first ever three-way tie for number one on one of our lists.
Yes.
Probably. Cool. Man, it sounds like a lot of good stuff. I was like a second away from pulling the trigger on Absolute Batman a little bit ago because I do really like the idea of um trying to do some like I don't know, like specials like we've done in the past for movies, but for comics instead of movies, like a a special where we just like this episode we're gonna cover volume one or of
Oh, do you
something,
remember
you
the
know.
one I almost pitched to you? Like, we there was a little talk about maybe doing? It was me.
What was it?
I think it was, like, for the first volume of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And yeah, another kind of good angle to do it. Yeah. But yeah, I like the idea of doing that because um yeah. Because everyone's on their screens all the time. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta just look. I mean, unless you're looking at a digital
Yeah, unless you
ebook of
got
it.
the Kindle version or
Yeah.
something.
Which I guess is fine.
Oh, yeah, by the way, just for anyone, interested in the Absolute Universe, there when you read the Ultimate Universe, you really have to start with you can't ju you really need to start with the miniseries that kicked it off, Ultimate Invasion. Now, technically, the first thing in the Absolute Universe was the DC All In special. From what I've seen, you don't need to start with that. That's just kind of
Okay.
backstory about Darkseid. Like, I think you can just jump into it without having to read that thing.
Okay.
I mean, maybe for like a crossover, you'll get a little bit more context, but there's nothing that's essential to know the way like the Ultimate Universe. You really gotta start with Ultimate Invasion.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to know. Well, um, now that we've gotten to the end of our comics of 2025 section, uh, forget what I said about screens being bad. It's time to get into video games.
Oh yes.
And I have a top five here. Um, and I guess there are probably some indie games and like PC games that I played throughout the year that were newer that I'm not accounting for, but these are five pretty major releases and of this year, and I've ranked them. So number five was one of my most anticipated, probably of this list, my most anticipated game of the year. And oh, and one thing I do want to say is just a week ago or so, my actual most anticipated game of the year came out, but I haven't played it yet because
Oh,
I want to get a Switch 2 before I can play it. But it's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
did you get
So
did you buy a Switch 2 version of the game? Like, you have a
I I
Switch 2
I
before
have
you get the
I
console?
no, I don't have a Switch 2.
But, like, did you
So
buy the
yeah.
Switch 2 version of the game?
No, I don't
Oh.
own it. I'm waiting for the right time to play it. I don't own it.
Oh, okay.
But so my action, so that's gonna be a big omission. In fact, in the past, I've had these have been full of Nintendo games, and none of them are Nintendo games because I mean I got a PS5 in January, and so a lot of been a little bit more tapped into the popular games and trying out a lot of the more AAA or double A sort of titles that have come out this year. But number five, one of my favorite game franchises of all time that I've talked about many times on here is Doom. And one of my most anticipated games of the year was Doom the Dark Ages, which is the third in sort of the reboot trilogy. Because there was in the 90s, there's Doom 1 and 2, and then 3 came out in the mid 2000s. They decided to reboot the series in 2016 with Doom 2016. Then Doom Eternal came out in 2020, and now Doom the Dark Ages.
So this is
And
the grand finale.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe there'll be a fourth one, but it is the third in this reboot trilogy. And they did a pretty big aesthetic sort of twist on it, which is that it's also technically a prequel, a big prequel, because it is before any of the games.
Oh.
It takes place and shows some of the origins of the main character, and even though it's all set in the far future and stuff, The aesthetic, it's sort of the theming it takes from is like Dark Ages, hence Doom the Dark Ages. Um, uh, so mechanically, they've added some really cool things like giving the Doom Slayer, which is what people call the main character of it, um, a a shield weapon, basically a medieval looking shield that has like a chainsaw wrapped around it that you can throw around and use as a weapon. By far the most fun thing about this game is throwing that shield around at demons. My god, is it
Going
just so
full Captain
satisfying?
America.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it is like throwing using a shield as a weapon. Um, because Doom is all about uh being uh like it is run in and shoot demons. It's not like a lot of so I'm trying to think. I don't know that I want to go too deep into all this now, but um Doom 3, the original Doom 3 got a lot of flack, and unfortunately I'm also one of the people who doesn't care for it as much. I think it's a good game. But Doom 3 missed the point of Doom, and most people would agree that Doom 1 and 2 are these colorful, bright arcade shooters where you run around and shoot demons, and the story isn't really the point. Um, and in the reboot, they poked at this directly because there's a famous scene at the beginning of Doom 2016 where this voice is coming at you through a speaker system, and it starts like narrating at you. It starts like explaining the situation, like here's the mission, and the main character punches it. And it's just such an iconic scene because it's just like this game isn't about cutscenes. It isn't about just sitting here in a story. You're going to go in and you're going to shoot demons. There is a story if you pay attention, but it's not going to be shoved in your face. Doom 3 was like a slow, kind of darker, more gritty. It's kind of in an era of like Call of Duty and Gears of War where shooters needed to be a little bit more grounded and realistic and just grittier. And which is funny to say a game about shooting demons not being gritty, but the point it's like it's an arcade. You're flying around at inhuman speeds and shooting demons, and things are exploding in bright colors. And the reboots understood that that's what Doom was, and they brought that into the modern age, and they kind of made arcade shooters as a genre return. So Doom the Dark Ages does have a little bit of a you guys seem to by the third game you can't help yourselves but to lore dump because my one criticism of Doom the Dark Ages is that there's a lot of lore dump. There's a lot of cutscenes, which feels very. I thought you learned your lesson about the cutscene thing, but so a lot of people are upset that they shoved a bunch of cutscenes and backstory in your face in Doom the Dark Ages. What I have to say about that is I wasn't crazy about the cutscenes either. A lot of the choices of the lore are whatever to me, but you can do the same thing that Doom guy in Doom 2016 does and just skip it. Just skip it. You don't have to watch it because where this game shines is incredibly dynamic and engaging combat gameplay. Like I bringing it back around, throwing that shield around is so satisfying. Upgrading your weapons and your dash and your movement abilities. I mean, it is as fluid and bouncing around the map as ever. It is an arcade shooter through and through.
Is it first person or third person?
First person. In fact, Doom technically what invented the first person shooter was Wolfenstein, but Doom was like based on the Wolfenstein engine or something like that. So not only is it first person shooter, it basically invented the first person shooter. Um, but yes, Doom: The Dark Ages, bringing it into the medieval. Um, there's some nitpicks, and it is the worst of the newer trilogy, but it's very good, very fun.
It's like The
Number
Godfather 3. The
yeah, I
worst of the
guess so.
trilogy, but still enjoyable.
Yeah. Um, Number 4 on my list of best video games of the year. As I mentioned, I'm a huge Nintendo guy, but I've just this year I haven't gotten to it yet. I
Mario was in tears, saying, "Why are you not playing
exactly
my game?"
because there were 3 major arcade racing style racing arcade style racing games this year in Mario Kart World, the launch title for the Switch 2. Haven't played it, but I want to. Kirby Air Riders, a game that I want to play even more than Mario Kart World because I love Kirby, but again, I haven't been on my Switch game as much as here. And the other major arcade racer that came out was Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Um, a uh, Sonic universe racing game that I think has some pretty interesting. I mean, it is in the arcade racer genre where it is basically a Mario Kart clone, but it does some pretty interesting things. And I actually think it's like for a game that is ostensibly like a kids game, has some pretty strategic and difficult racing mechanics to deal with. Um, the main gimmick that kind of keeps it interesting is when you're racing, each lap is a different course. So
Oh,
because you go through a portal at the end of a lap, and then you go to a different Sonic level and race through that, and then you go through another portal at the end. The 3 laps um, go back and forth; they're different. Um, and man, I just had a lot of fun racing through all the Grand Prix on this and unlocking all the levels, trying to get the hang of the drift and I'm just big fan of racing games in general, but I especially think arcade racing. Um, Mario Kart for many years was kind of like the only one that, or the only good one, and it's really cool to have a properly good arcade racer that isn't Mario Kart. And that'll bring me to my number 3 video game of the year, which is a cheat because it is technically a video game that came out 2006, but remastered. That is The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remastered. Um, so,
I sometimes
El-
debate about going into these games. Elder
yeah,
Scrolls.
because the most famous Elder Scrolls game that is like a household name, of course, is number 5, which is Skyrim. Skyrim, ever since it came out, has been like one of the most beloved and talked about video games of all time, honestly. And as a result, Skyrim has gotten like sort of like remastered, re-released on different consoles, different versions of it released. It is like literally a running joke in the gaming community online. It's a joke how much Skyrim gets re-released and re-released and re-released. Um, and Oblivion has this is the first time it's been re-released to my knowledge. But it is more than just like a re-release. Like, oh, here's the special edition, whatever. It's fully remastered using um the let's see, Unreal Engine 5, total graphics overhaul. It looks unrecognizable. And also has other improvements like more user friendly menu and it added I noticed it said it added it added sprinting. I didn't even notice like, oh, the original, yeah, you move so slow and I forgot. Um but yeah, I was very excited when this dropped out of nowhere. I don't even think there was a wait. I think it was like this comes out today.
Oh wow.
Um I was really excited because for years I had been saying like, so one of my sort of contrarian hot takes was like, I actually think Oblivion's better than Skyrim. Oblivion's
Huh.
actually my favorite. And uh so like kind of like my personal special favorite Elder Scrolls game getting a beautiful remaster. I mean, I felt very happy that that finally happened. Um because I mean, Skyrim is awesome, and it has the dragons, and you're the Dragonborn, and you can speak Dragonborn, and you can do the shouts, and it's in a sort of Viking esque northern setting, and it is awesome. It is also one of my favorite games of all time. But but in I mean in Oblivion, uh, it has the classic fantasy feel, um open world going through Cyrodiil, which is a more like green and lush sort of vibe, medieval fantasy sort of realm. And I also felt some of the sort of more old school feeling RPG mechanics were very satisfying to me in Oblivion. um but so yeah, I'm very happy it got remastered. I was playing this a bunch this year, kind of first time in many many years that I got back into Oblivion. And it does like it does look way better, obviously. Like Oblivion came out at a weird time in 2006. It was like the Xbox 360 and PS3 had just come out, and so it was basically like uh it's it's basically like Oblivion's basically like if you had an Xbox 360, it's the worst looking game on the Xbox 360. Like it came out at the very beginning, and on top of that, Elder Scrolls games are so huge that they sacrifice in a lot of areas, like how it looks.
Oh.
um, like that's just how it, and you sort of learn to accept the charm of that. But with it being remastered like this, it's kind of crazy to see this really on almost every level ugly looking game looks so good. But anyway, that's my number 3. My number 2 is another open world medieval game actually, but this one is based on actual medieval ages. That is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now I actually didn't play a ton of 1, but when 2 came out, I heard it was really good and I really wanted to play another open world role playing game kind of thing. So I was just like, I don't care, I'm just going to play 2. It looks good. And it was very good. It is I mean honestly, it kind of is in the same vein as Oblivion in some ways. I mean, it is a first person RPG, which is a little more rare. But and like open world. But this is I had a little kick of medieval history this year because I was fascinated by it. It's based on an actual period in the 1400s, the Kingdom of Bohemia, which is basically like medieval Czech Republic. Um, and like the characters in it are like, you know, based on real historical figures. It's based on a real period of time, and it takes you through a really good story. And of course, when it opens up to letting you explore the kingdom, it's really where it shines, like many many games like this do. But yeah, another excellent game. That's my number 2. But what I really am here and wanting to talk about is my number 1 game of the year.
Oh, the big one.
And um I mean, it is yeah, I mean, it's just one of the best games ever. I'm so happy I decided to play it. I wasn't interested in it at first, and I just kept hearing how good it was. And then I heard that this game was a turn-based RPG, like a Japanese style RPG. And I say Japanese style, but it was actually made in France. But just wait, it gets more confusing. because
Okay.
the name of the game is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Um, Basically a brand new franchise, apparently called Clair Obscur. And the first game in the franchise is called Expedition 33. No, it is not the 33rd game in the franchise. It is the 33rd
Darn.
expedition in this story. Um, but so this game it is the furthest thing from a hot take to say that this game is very good because it just within the last week or so won game of the year. In fact, I think I heard that it won more awards in one game of the year awards show than any game has ever won. Like it
Wow.
swept the awards. Completely swept it. Um it is, and again, I love turn-based RPG. A lot of people don't like turn-based because it needs to be like an action game or whatever. I love turn-based, so it touches my heart that a turn-based game has been getting loved this much. But basically, what it is it's a turn-based, heavily story-driven RPG where and and the through line of all of this is this game has one of the best stories I've ever seen in a video game. Like, even if
Wow.
someone doesn't want to play it, if you could watch it as a movie somehow or something, or just watch a long play of it, it is worth it. It is one of the best stories I've ever seen in a video game, genuinely. And it takes place in sort of a fantasy post-apocalyptic France. It feels a little Victorian. Apparently, the setting style is called Belle Epoque. There's a whole Wikipedia page about Belle Epoque. I don't know much about it, but that's apparently the style. Hard to describe unless you see it, but the game is sort of in this style, and it basically takes place in this world where there is this like ticking clock in the distance in this post-apocalyptic world. There's a big glowing number, and every year there is a big event called the gommage. The number will tick down, and everyone younger than that number all dies. They like basically like Infinity War dust away.
Oh.
And so the reason why it's called Expedition 33 is because many of the people who are now 33 years old, and therefore it is their last year alive because it's about to tick down to 32, they are going on a mission to go towards the big bad guy, or they're going out of the safe space into the scary fantasy post-apocalyptic area to stop this from happening again. And this has been going on every year for like 70 since 100, so like 70 something years, and every single expedition has failed, and you and your team of adventurers have to go and try and stop this from happening. um and It creates a lot of really heart-wrenching moments. That's all I'm saying. It's really amazing. The voice actors and the motion capture people all knocked it out of the park. And It is something where if someone wants to go in knowing nothing, you should, because it has not just one but like multiple twists where it completely changes everything you thought you knew about the game. Um, where it's just like you truly could not have seen it coming.
Wow.
And I mean, I guess the last thing I'll say mechanically, turn-based combat sometimes for some people can be kind of dull because you're just choosing from a list of abilities. So like, oh, I attack with this, and then bam. This game keeps you really engaged for the turn-based combat. It's not like it's the first time it's been done, but basically, if you hit a button at the right time during your attack move, you do more damage. And if the enemy is attacking you, if you hit the defend button at the exact right time, you either take no damage or you do a counterattack. And one thing that I don't think I've ever seen in a game like this before is if you're good enough, I think that you could take 0 damage through the entire game. And
Oh,
it's too hard for me to even be anywhere near doing that. Not only I mean, I could barely get through one battle without, without with taking no damage, but and I'd been meaning to do this actually, but I wanted to wait until I had finished it to do so, but I really wanna check out some videos of people. I wanna see if anyone has actually gotten through the whole game without taking any damage. You'd have to be really good, and I'm very fascinated by what that would look like to
full
do.
of carpal tunnel syndrome in your thumbs.
Yes. But yeah, oh man, that is just it's a beautiful game. Absolutely beautiful. And I do not say that lightly. Um so that's it for my video games.
Oh, yes.
That does mean it's time to enter the last of them of what we're talking about today. It's time to enter music mode.
That's right.
This is like every year a sneak preview of my highly anticipated social media year end lists that come with just the best visuals. People are saying, and you can find those on Instagram at DeadPlantX. But
One
um,
day you should make like a teaser poster, like the day before you start, do a teaser poster and use that as a pull quote.
oh yeah,
You give it like quote yourself, Tyler,
yeah,
in comments
yeah.
section.
Just put it in really fine print. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'll, instead of mine, it'll say host of the host of comment section podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. um, but anyway, one thing, even though this will be a sneak preview, the full list will be available on this podcast before I will have posted all of it to social media. So there is a sneak preview there, but you will have to go to my social media to see my best songs list and my honorable mentions.
Oh,
So
yes.
none of the honorable mentions will be mentioned here.
Yes. The
So
ones that weren't good enough to make the cut.
I guess so, but they're all very good. But anyway, just the top 10 albums of the year 2025. Another great year for music. Number 10 is by Paramore frontwoman Hayley Williams. She released a solo album called Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party. And uh, this is her best solo work ever, I believe. It was released in a very interesting way where there's like 17 songs, which is a lot for an album. And they were most of them were like released as singles beforehand, one by one, and then it was just like these aren't singles, actually it's an album. But anyway, really good variety. And I would particularly shout out the tracks Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party, which is the title track, and True Believer, which is a very amazing commentary on, I guess, racist Southerners, basically. Great song. Um, my number 9 album of 2025 is by hardcore and death metal ish band Tribal Gaze, Inveighing Brilliance. This one was more of a just I want to listen to some dumb music that I can kind of bang my head to, or really just sort of gently nod my head to as I sit in silence in my room or on a walk, and try and not make it show on my face too much how hard it goes. But
You
it
want to rock
is
out, but not fully rock out.
exactly, you gotta hold it off a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, I believe I saw Tribal Gaze this year. Open for a band that I was seeing, but it was before this album came out. So I'm excited to maybe see some of these songs live when I can go back out into the world again. But the first 3 tracks are banger after banger. I would most recommend those. My number 8 album of 2025 is from a band called Deaf Heaven. It's called Lonely People with Power. Came out earlier this year, and I wasn't too crazy about the band's last album. I love the band's first two albums, but their most recent one, they went in more of a shoegazy, and this is like they're a black metal band, so they're a sort of atmospheric style of metal. But and they kind of went away from metal on the previous album to mixed results. It was a little boring to me. On this album, they sort of fuse them in a way that really works. And I think a lot of people agree is one of Def Evan's best albums. That they really went from probably their worst album to potentially their best album, just like that. Amazing stuff. And I would highly recommend the song Magnolia, as well as Revelator. I think Heathen is the one that fuses the two genres really well that I was thinking of. So I would recommend those. My seventh best album is going to go to one of the more popular bands on this list, a very popular band from the 90s and 2000s that's still making music, Deftones. Album is called Private Music. Now, I like Deftones, but it's never really one of my go-to bands. But then I heard they came out with this album, and people were saying it was good, and it was almost like, oh, you don't often hear of a band from 20 years ago making one of their best albums now. Interesting. And this is something you'll have to check out the socials for, I guess. But the album cover also sold me. I was like, oh, I got to listen to that. That album cover's awesome. But it put me into a Deftones phase this year where I started listening to their back catalog a lot and started getting more properly into them. And but even still, like, this new album is really what finally got me into Deftones. I love the first track, My Mind is a Mountain, and Infinite Source, and are a couple of recommendations from it. So my sixth best album of 2025 is from a band called Feytooth. It's called Labyrinthine. And this is a, it technically is probably categorized as doom metal, but for the uninitiated, it really isn't that aggressive or in your face of an album. This Feytooth album is really something that I would put on to relax, as weird as it sounds. It's this slow grooving atmospheric album with sometimes the vocals do shift to like a very in your face scream style, but sometimes they are sort of distant and reverby and soothing, and it creates these doomy soundscapes. Um, this album just has an amazing atmosphere, and the song October is one of my favorite songs of the entire year, right there. My number 5 album, I believe is the only hip hop album on my list for this year, but it's from a bit of a smaller artist called. I guess it's a collaboration between two artists. I don't know enough about them to know, but it's Infinity Knives and Brian Ennals. Two artists. One's called Infinity Knives and one's called Brian Ennals. Brian Ennals. The album's called A City Drowned in God's Black Tears. And this is a. I mean, I started out saying it's a hip hop album, but really it's just like a incredibly creative work of music, because there's certainly hip hop songs on it, but there's also, speaking of doom metal, a sort of doom metal-y song, and then there's also like the last song is almost kind of like an indie folk song, but it's really just this album with uh, extreme creative variety. But a lot of my favorite moments on it, one of my favorite songs that I recommend is that closing track that's sort of indie folk style. I really love that song. But like the first two songs are a 1-2 punch of some of the most like in your face rap bars about certain things currently going on in the world. Um, I I've rarely heard any other artists be so like offensively blatant about their thoughts on things. It's really refreshing to hear. Um, and to just not sugarcoat it. And it really goes to show how music can be a way to express feelings about serious topics and explore serious topics. And they do it with a lot of humor because it's almost like so in your face, so like just offensively put that it becomes funny even though the topics are serious. But anyway, Infinity Knives and Brian Ennals, I had not known about them before this year, but it's a great album.
Was this their first album or?
I think so. Again, I don't know much about them, but I think because yeah, I had never heard of them before, and I'm not aware of anything else by them as a pair. Um, but yes, um, so getting into my fourth best album of the year is a band with a name that is as unreadable as their logo. Sanguisugabog, with an album called Hideous Aftermath. It's a death metal album um, that has a lot of gruesome themes and really does what this style of death metal does best, is chugging, uh, gruesome sounding riffing and drumming, with some experimental moments here and there. Um, One of the things that really made this a favorite album of mine is this band's previous work actually ended up being one of my big inspirations for the album that I put out this year, which, believe it or not, is not on this list. I just felt like it wasn't appropriate.
There's a
um,
bit of a conflict of interest there.
yes. So I know I have three more to go after this, but that is not. But Gouging Out the Eyes to Look Away by Leaf Bones is actually not on this list. But Sanguisugabog is a huge inspiration for that album. And even though this album came out after my album, some of the singles on this album, especially Abhorrent Contraception, which is one of my favorites, and then uh, yeah, so that one came out earlier in the year, and this sort of style of death metal was a big inspiration of mine going into it. And then I think the last thing I want to share, I think it's the song "Repulsive Demise." Totally stand out on the album because it has like this sort of industrial electronic bit to it, where it's another really interesting genre fusion. Okay, the top three.
Big three.
Yep, and number two comes from actually sorry, number two, number three, number three and number two actually both are somewhat local. But
Oh,
my number three favorite album of the year is from Michigan band Hot Mulligan with "The Sound a Body Makes When It's Still." Um, this is an album actually. So the previous two Hot Mulligan albums, I think both were my number one album of the year those years. I love this band. Um, this one had a couple of singles ahead of time that I just thought were fine, and so I was actually a little worried leading up to this that it would be the first Hot Mulligan album that I thought was mid or not that great. In the context of the album, and this often happens, in the context of the album, those songs are great. I love the album, although, and I'm very pleased to say that even in the context of the album, those being good, they are the worst songs on the album, the singles, and the deeper cuts on the album are um are amazing. Particularly, I like the song Bon Jonah, which is probably the catchiest song on the album. Uh, and then there's a song called with a ridiculous name called Slumdog Scumgillionaire, and with a song with that stupid of a name, you'd be surprised to find out it is a very touching song about dealing with someone's imminent passing. It's a beautiful song. Emo is back, everybody, and Hot Mulligan is leading the way. My number two album is very local. It's from a Grand Rapids band, actually. That is been one of my favorite bands for many, many years. La Dispute. They put out a new album, and I think it's been like genuinely like 6 or 7 years since their last album. So they've been gone a while. And they finally came back with an album called No One Was Driving the Car. And they captured a rawness on this that I think is really compelling. Um and very narrative. The whole thing. So they're a lot of disputes. Always a hard band to describe what genre they are, but it's vaguely emo, vaguely post hardcore. It's very hard to explain, but it's the vocal style often sounds more like someone reciting poetry rhythmically, like it is, which almost rapping at times, but it is somewhat heavier music at times too. But this album is very conceptual and almost like paints a picture that you're watching a movie or like some kind of documentary from beginning to end, and watching the different stages of it happen. And uh the um uh it touches on a lot of topics like there's a song, one of my recommendations is Environmental Catastrophe Film, which touches on environmental issues and actually references the Grand River itself in
Oh,
talking about it. Um, it touches on pyramid schemes on a couple songs, which is interesting. And I guess the last thing I'll say about it is that I thought it was very satisfying. The first song on this album is called "I Shaved My Head," and it starts with "I shaved my head in the sink." And I had the thought when I shaved my head in the sink about a week ago to play that song while I
did
was
you?
doing it. Yeah. So
How
that was
heartbreaking would it be if you videotaped it, posted it like on social media, and then you got a copyright strike?
they better not. Didn't film it, so I won't have to worry
Like,
about
hey
that.
guys, local, come on! What? I thought we were a team here.
Yeah. All right. My number one album of the year is next, and that will conclude this episode of this list.
The
My
big
number
one.
one is another band that has been one of my favorite bands for many, many years. I started listening to them in like 2010 or something, so 15 years. Um, and I mean, my music taste has changed quite a bit over the years too, but this band has always had a special place for me, and their style has also kind of changed with my taste a little bit over the years. So, um, it's a band called the Acacia Strain, and the album name is "You Are Safe from God Here." Uh, Brutally heavy metalcore album, just devastatingly dark and uh, cynical, and it just sounds evil and disgusting. And sometimes, and apparently a lot this year, that is what I needed. Although the interesting thing is that it came out at the end of October, and it is by far my most listened to album of the year in my
Wow.
Apple Music replay. And that's very interesting because it's only been out for
Does it tell
month
you
a
how
month
many
and a half.
times you've done it, or does it just rank them?
It tells you how long specifically. I could even try, and I never thought about it being that, because yeah, a lot of people like to show off their Spotify Wrapped and stuff. I use Apple Music, but yeah, I can see, it would be kind of interesting to pull up. But yeah, a little about the Casey Strains USA from God here. It's a very dark album about many things, but there is the loss of the vocalist's pet, I believe, that fuels some of the hatred for the world on the album. Especially the last song, which is like a I forget, like 11 or 12 minute long
Wow.
epic metalcore song. But uh okay, so my top artists of the year, I've listened to the Acacia Strain for 2,683 minutes this year. And you know what the
Wow.
really embarrassing thing is? My number 2 artist is me, Leaf Bones, 1,617 minutes, trying to get those numbers up.
Right now, there's people like the ego on this guy.
Yeah.
Who do you
Yeah,
think you are,
look.
Beethoven? Well, at least Beethoven couldn't listen to his own stuff, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, my top songs of the year, 9 out of the 10 are from this album by the Acacia Strain. Again, that just came out at the end of October. Oh, and here it is. I've listened to the album 1,784 minutes. Um, what would that be divided by? How many songs are on it? 12 or crap. Um, 12 songs. So this is a rough estimate, but I've listened to it 148 times ish.
How long
uh,
is it? Like is it about a half hour?
38 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just exactly what I needed at the time that it came out. It is I mean, talk about needing to hold yourself back from rocking out too hard. Um my number one recommendation and my number one song of the year on my song of the year list is Holy Moonlight by the Acacia Strain. It just simply goes so incredibly hard. So, yeah. For me, it doesn't get much better than that. And also, I would be remiss not to say this year was a big Acacia Strain year for me because I saw them live earlier this year. And it was kind of a funny story. I literally accidentally got VIP tickets for them.
What? How does that
Which
happen?
basically what happened is I went to buy tickets to the show, which was in Detroit. And then when I got the email notification, I noticed it said, "This is not a ticket." And I was like looking through it and I realized that what I had bought was a VIP add on. And then I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, I don't have tickets." And then I quickly, luckily, there were still tickets available. I bought a ticket.
How far
Um,
away was that? I mean, like, a time span between when you thought you purchased it
it
to,
was like
like,
a
when you got
day.
the email. Oh, a day?
Yeah, I like it was like 24 hours later I realized and bought the ticket. But yeah, the VIP experience was, I mean, I don't know if VIP is even the right term. It was a sound check kind of ticket where basically you get to go before the doors open and watch them practice a few songs.
Oh,
Basically, get
wow.
to see them play a few songs in a more intimate setting. And yeah, I got some like merch that they handed me, and then some of the members of the band actually came down and talked to the people who were there, and so I actually did get to talk to uh, really for a second everyone in the band, but mainly one of the guitarists or two of the guitarists. Um, I talked to for a little bit, and that was cool. I was
Wow.
very unexpected because I normally wouldn't have gone to something like that, but because it was like an accident, I was like, "This is
Yes.
awesome." um, so yeah, very very cool. So shout out the band that made my number one album of 2025, the Acacia Strain.
Well, your VIP experience sounds better than one artist. I think it happened this year. Did you hear about
Uh,
one? Maybe you heard about it. I can't remember the person's name. There was some VIP experience where you go there and you help set up the chairs. It was basically like
Is you just
your
working?
VIP experience was free labor.
That's funny. I didn't hear that, but that's hilarious.
I can't remember who the artist was. I think it was like it's an artist a lot of people don't like.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember who it was, but it was a lot of money for that experience too. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the other thing is like I say VIP experience. The concerts I go to are not like people complain about ticket prices these days. It's like, yeah, for really, really major artists, yes. Like if you're going to a I mean, especially like a local show, but even like a fairly popular artist in a more independent scene, um, tickets can be like, $30 maybe, which is very different than the $150 that you would spend seeing I don't know, like uh I guess I don't know, Benson Boone or something. um but yeah, um good experience with that this year, and as negative as this album is, it makes me very happy. So that is my number one album of the year.
oh yes. So guys, there we have it. We've gone through our outside of movie and TV stuff. We went through comic books, music, and video games.
Sure did.
That's right. I honestly don't know how people cover video games the way we do movies and TV, cuz let me tell you something. If comment section was a video game show, I would constantly have heartbreak with all of the delays because every game I was looking
Yeah.
forward to this year got delayed till next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's always so much good stuff, so much fun media. By the way, I wanted to ask this. In the Sonic Racer game,
Hmm.
is he still called Robotnik or did they do Eggman? Because I think Dr. Robotnik sounds so much cooler than
Well,
Dr. Eggman.
yeah. I don't. Well, he's referred to as both in the series, so I don't know. If I had to guess, it probably shows up as Dr. Robotnik.
Okay.
Eggman is a little bit more of a nickname.
Yeah.
Um, that's my guess, but I can't remember.
Yes. Because I think there was a time where he was just called Eggman. I was just like, what? What kind of change is this? Unless I'm just
Yeah,
misremembering it.
yeah, I think that might be true.
All right, guys. So there we go. Boy, did we give you a bunch of recommendations to
Sure did.
read, to play, and to listen to. So, guys, there we go. Enjoy some of the good stuff from 2025. You know what? We're in an exciting time where there's so much content for us to consume and enjoy, and let your imagination be taken away to so many different worlds.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I do believe it is time to wrap up this episode. And
And
as
that's why we
always,
encourage you, as you were saying, as
yes,
always.
yes, as always, no matter what type of media you are choosing to consume, whenever you have the chance, keep falling down that rabbit hole.